Hey guys, welcome. Today we are going a very powerful English practice class. That's your English speaking make fluent if you end this class. So let's start. It was a normal weekday morning. I woke up a little late, checked my phone, and realized I had already missed 2 calls. I quickly got out of bed and thought, I don't have time to waste today. I walked into the kitchen and saw my roommate making coffee. He looked at me and said, "Man, you look really tired." I smiled and replied, "Yeah, I didn't sleep well last night. I've been working a lot lately." He nodded and said, "I get it. Work has been crazy since last month." While grabbing a cup, I said, "By the way, I'll be there in 10 minutes. I just need to get ready." He laughed and replied, "You always say that." I went back to my room, picked up my phone, and sent a quick text. "I'll call you later." As I was tying my shoes, my sister called me. I answered and said, "Hey, what's up?" She sounded stressed. "I have a headache and I'm really tired today." I told her, "Take some rest. I'll get back to you later." After that, I headed outside. The weather felt nice, and for a moment, I felt relaxed. I thought to myself, this morning is already better. When I reached the office, my coworker waved at me. "You're 5 minutes late," he said. I replied calmly, "Yeah, traffic was bad. I'll manage it." He smiled and said, "No worries. The meeting hasn't started yet." We sat down, and the manager walked in. He looked confident and said, "All right everyone, let's discuss this topic." During the meeting, one of my teammates spoke up. "I believe this plan will work." Another teammate nodded and said, "I agree with you." Everything was going smoothly until someone's phone rang. The manager paused and said, "Please turn off your phone." After the meeting, I went to grab lunch with a friend. He asked me, "So, are you still looking for a job change?" I replied honestly, "Yeah, I'm thinking about switching next year." He said, "That makes sense. You've been working here since 2020. While eating, he shared a story about his cousin. He lives alone in New York and works really hard. I laughed and said, "That's impressive." Later in the afternoon, my boss called me into his office. He looked serious but calm. "I didn't receive your message yesterday," he said. I replied, "I'm sorry about that. My phone was turned off." He nodded and said, "All right. Just keep me posted next time." As the day went on, I felt more confident. I was dealing with a lot of tasks, but everything felt manageable. In the evening, I packed my bag and said to my team, "I'm heading out." One of them replied, "See you tomorrow." On my way home, I stopped at the store. I realized I hadn't eaten anything properly all day. When I finally got home, I felt relieved. I kicked off my shoes, sat on the couch, and thought. Today was long, but productive. My phone buzzed again. A message popped up. "Did you get home safely?" I smiled and typed back, "Yeah, I got home safely. I'll talk to you later." I leaned back, closed my eyes for a moment, and felt completely satisfied. The day wasn't perfect, but it felt real. Just another regular day, full of small conversations, simple moments, and real English in action. I checked the time and realized it was already late evening. I stood up, stretched a little, and walked toward the window. The city lights were on, and the street outside looked calm. I grabbed a glass of water and thought about the day. Nothing dramatic happened, but everything felt real. That's how most days are, honestly. My phone buzzed again. This time it was a friend from college. He texted, "Hey, are you free tonight?" I replied, "I'm a bit busy right now, but I'll text you later." He sent back a thumbs up emoji. I smiled and put the phone down. A few minutes later, my roommate walked in. He looked at me and said, "Do you want to order food or cook something?" I thought for a second and replied, "Let's order. I'm too tired to cook." He laughed and said, "Same here." While he was placing the order, I sat on the couch and turned on the TV. Nothing interesting was on, so I just let it play in the background. I said, "By the way, did you finish that project?" He answered, "Yeah, I wrapped it up this morning. It took longer than I expected." I nodded and said, "That happens." The food arrived a few minutes later. We ate quietly for a bit, just enjoying the moment. After dinner, he checked his phone and said, "I have an early meeting tomorrow." I replied, "Then you should get some rest." He stood up and said, "Yeah, you're right. Good night." "Good night," I replied. Once he went to his room, the apartment felt quiet. I cleaned up a little and then sat back down. I opened my laptop and started scrolling through emails. One message caught my attention. It was from a company I had applied to weeks ago. I read it carefully. They wanted to schedule an interview. I leaned back and took a deep breath. "That's good news," I said to myself. I checked the date and time. It was next week. I opened my calendar and added a reminder. Then I closed my laptop. At that moment, my phone rang again. It was my sister. I answered and said, "Hey, how are you feeling now?" She replied, "Much better. Thanks for asking." I said, "That's good to hear." We talked for a few minutes about random things. Nothing serious. Just casual conversation. Before hanging up, she said, "Don't forget to call Mom tomorrow." I smiled and said, "I won't." After the call ended, I checked the time again. It was getting late. I turned off the lights, walked to my room, and lay down on the bed. My body felt tired, but my mind felt calm. I stared at the ceiling for a moment and thought about tomorrow. Another day, another set of conversations. More simple English, more real moments. I closed my eyes slowly, listening to the quiet sounds around me, letting the day fade away. I woke up the next morning to the sound of my alarm. For once, I didn't hit the snooze button. I got out of bed, took a deep breath, and told myself, "Today's going to be a good day." I got ready, grabbed my keys, and stepped outside. The air felt fresh, and the street was already busy. On the way to work, I stopped for coffee. The barista smiled and said, "Good morning. What can I get for you?" I replied, A medium coffee, please. She handed it to me and said, "Have a great day." "You too," I said. At the office, things felt different. I felt more focused, more confident. During the morning meeting, my manager asked, "Any updates?" I spoke up and shared my progress. Everyone listened. No interruptions. No confusion. After the meeting, my coworker leaned over and said, "Nice job. That was clear." I smiled and said, "Thanks. I appreciate it." Around noon, I got a message confirming the interview. I read it twice just to be sure. I didn't rush. I didn't panic. I felt ready. In the afternoon, I wrapped up my tasks and sent a final email. Then I shut down my computer. As I walked out of the office, I felt proud. Not because everything was perfect, but because I handled the day well. On the way home, I called my mom. She picked up and said, "Did you eat?" I laughed and said, "Yes, I did." She told me to take care of myself. I promised I would. That evening, I sat down with my notebook. I wrote a few goals. Nothing big, just simple things. Speak more confidently. Listen carefully. Keep learning. Before going to bed, I checked my phone one last time. No new messages. No pressure. I turned off the light and lay down. This time, my mind felt peaceful. Because fluency doesn't come from big words. It comes from small, daily conversations. The kind you just practiced. And tomorrow, you'll speak a little better than today.